I'm super... You can tell it's Monday and I haven't filmed in a couple of days, can't you?
Happy Halloween.
Hello! Hi guys and welcome to Halloween week! I'm so excited for Halloween week. I've been preparing for this for quite a while. We have a fantastic new background. Yay! It's so good, I'm so happy. We're gonna have a full week of Halloween things. Tutorials, spoopy stories, DIYs. I'm so excited to share this with you guys. So for the first day of my vlogoween, if you will, I thought we would kick off with my personal paranormal stories. Now, these are all things that occurred when I was much younger. I feel as though the older I've got, the more I've learned to block it out and not listen to it and not deal with it, because I am a big scaredy cat. Scaredy cat. Oh, what's my life? But when I was younger, I did experience a lot of things, and not just me, my family as well experienced quite a few things. So I'm going to talk to you about 3 things mainly. 2 of them were homes that we lived in, and 1 of them was just an experience that happened, which was a little bit terrifying. So I'll start off with the first one. I would have been about 7 or 8 years old, and we moved into this cottage in pretty much the middle of nowhere. And it had the biggest garden you can ever imagine. It must have been about a mile long. It was huge, and it had polytunnels and all this stuff, and my mum used to grow things. It was really lovely, a great place to grow up. The house was dated. It always had this very uncomfortable vibe. The garden was amazing. I loved being out in the garden, but the house itself had a very uncomfortable vibe. Oh no, wait. I'm gonna go get my book because I can't remember all of this. Right, I've got all my stuff now. I rang my mum up to give me all this stuff, and then I forgot to actually bring it up with me because there's a lot. In the first month we moved in, Mum was in the kitchen making dinner, I was upstairs playing, and my dad was in the living room. And while she was cooking, she heard someone pretty much like right close to her shout in her ear, and she turned around to like have a go at my dad because that's who she thought it was, because it was a man's voice that she heard. And when she turned around, no one was there, and so she zoomed straight into the living room to, you know, tell my dad off for doing that because she's cooking. She was making chips. Mum was making, you know, chips in the 90s, so there was obviously oil everywhere, and chip fires were a thing of the 90s as well. So she went in to tell my dad off because obviously that was dangerous for making a jump whilst cooking with flammables, and he was fast asleep, snoring his head off, so it couldn't have been him. I was upstairs playing, and obviously I was a youngster, about 7 or 8 I think, and I couldn't have made a man's voice if I tried, so she was really confused and terrified and freaked out. Now, she has no idea what this voice said, she can't remember, but all she knows is that it was a man's voice and it was terrifying, and it got right up close to her in her ear. So fast forward a little bit further, we got a rescue dog called Laddie, and he was lovely and wonderful, and I was absolutely terrified of dogs at this point. So my parents thought, right, we'll get a dog and hopefully that'll help her overcome that. And he was very excitable, jumped at everyone, but he never jumped at me because I think he got that I was quite, you know, a bit terrified, but he was lovely. Obviously my fear of dogs is gone now with, you know, Charleston. She's cool. We're good with dogs now. I was upstairs in my bedroom. Now, I had these wardrobes, and they were those slidey wardrobes, and it had a slidey panel here and a slidey panel here, and then a mirror bit in between. And I cannot tell you what I was doing. I cannot tell you how this happened because I don't remember. But basically, I was at the wardrobe, I was doing something. I wouldn't have been deliberately trying to break it, but I would have been doing something probably silly that caused it to come off. But the mirror panel in the middle started to come off, so it tilted like that. And I was like, oh God. So I started shouting my mum, because if I shouted my dad, he probably would have come and given me a rocket, which I wasn't a fan of, quite rightly. So I shouted my mum to come up and give me a hand, and whilst I was doing that, with the mirror sort of tilted backwards, the dog was up with me as well. With the mirror tilted backwards, I saw someone stood in the hallway behind me. So you come up the stairs and there's like literally a tiny square of hallway, and then you've got 1, 2, 3 rooms, bathroom, bedroom, other bedroom. My bedroom was here, and they were stood in this little hallway bit. So the door was here to my room, my wardrobe was here, so that mirror was facing out into the hallway. And I was stood there and I saw a man with his hands on his hips. It was a shadow, but it was definitely a man with his hands on his hips, just facing me. I think it was facing me anyway, but he was stood with his hands on his hips, almost like Peter Pan, which was a bit weird. But the dog started going crazy, and then my mum came up and it disappeared. And that made me feel very uncomfortable, very on edge. It wasn't pleasant. Next door, they had like a big farmhouse, but it was an actual farm. So barns and everything, because we were right in the country, like we were the country. They had a big old farmhouse, and they heard people shouting their names all the time, whether individually or together. They would hear people shouting their names all the time. So where we were I don't know what went on. I don't know any history of it. It was a freaky ass place. The next place I lived, I can remember a lot more vividly because I was a lot older when I was here. So we moved to a different house. We moved from the previous house because my mum got pregnant with my sister, so we had to move. And we ended up in this, what seemed like a really nice house. It was down a little lane in a town, and it had a big lake opposite it, which I think is why my dad wanted to go there, because he could fish. It was nice, it was a nice area. And then things started happening in the first sort of month or so, when you're just starting to get to know somewhere. You're not familiar with sounds or anything like that. So over that lake at night, there was like a foresty bit behind it, and we'd hear shouting. Like, I'd hear someone screaming, and not just like fun screaming that you could maybe mistake for someone in pain. It was like blood curdling screams, and I'd go and tell my mum and dad, and then they'd hear it, and my dad would go out with his torch to check, you know, no one was hurt. Because we used to, like, we thought definitely for the first month or so that someone had fallen in, but it was always the same. There'd be someone screaming, we'd go look, and no one would be there. So that was terrifying, but we'd hear screaming quite a lot. And then we lived there a little bit longer, and we started noticing like really, really weird things. So our computer at the time was under the stairs. So we had the hallway and you had the stairs up on your left. And then when you kept going through, you went right to the utility room and bathroom, and then left to the kitchen. The computer was situated in the middle of that hallway, sort of under the stairs. So I would be on that most of the time. It was the naughties, computers, MSN. Thumbs up for MSN, guys. So I'd be chatting to my friends and everything, and my mum would be in the kitchen washing up, making tea, whatever she was doing. You know when you get engrossed in something? I was a massive fan of The Sims. I'm still a massive fan of The Sims. And if you played The Sims, you will know that you put your head down and go, I'll play for 20 minutes, something like that, and then it's 4 AM. So I'd put my head down and it'd be like a couple of hours had gone past. My dad always went to bed quite early because he got up early for work. And it would just be me and mum. Obviously my sister was in bed, so I'd look up and it would, no kidding, be foggy. It would be foggy in this hallway, and mum would come in and she'd think something was on fire. So sometimes it was like smoke, and then other times it was foggy, and mum and I would just be stood in the middle of it, and you'd struggle to see the front door, you struggle to see the other end of the hallway, and I can't even understand it. Again, like when we first moved in, we thought things were on fire, there was an issue, and you'd look outside and it wouldn't even be that foggy, or there'd be no smoke from coming outside. There was no source of this fog smoke. It was awful. And then sometimes you could smell smoke, which leads me on to my next point. Down the road from us, there was a huge factory fire, and a lot of people were hurt, a lot of people were killed, and there was this huge factory fire, and that's the only thing that we can put it down to. The screaming, that would fit in with that, and the smoke that we smell. Oh, Norman, he fell down, I didn't notice. I'm gonna watch this back later and be like, oh, sorry bro. Yeah, it was absolutely terrifying, but there was a huge factory fire there, and that we think maybe had something to do with it. This was obviously over 100 years ago. So fast forward a lot further, and one of the things my family like to do is we put my sister in bed, because obviously she was a baby, and then on a Sunday night the three of us would watch Monarch of the Glen. I know, cool AF. I enjoyed it, it was nice family time. We had 2 chairs, and a sofa, and my dad would be on the sofa, my mum would be in one chair, and then we'd turn one chair round that was next to the window and watch it there. Now, it was getting to the point in the year where I can't remember what time it was on. It wasn't that late because it was obviously quite family friendly. So it was dusky outside, so it was a little bit darker, but the curtains were still open because there was still light. And I can remember just being sat there and feeling panicked and terrified, and I don't even know how to explain it. I was just really on edge, and there's no reason for it. And I turned to look at the window, and this woman drops down, and she's clearly hung herself. She had black hair and she was in this white gown, and then she looked at me with her eyes, and her face was like pale and cracked with very grey veins on her face, and her eyes were very pale. Shit out of a horror movie basically. And I never slept again. So that happened, I got over it. Now fast forward a few years and we're still in the same house. So I went to bed one night and I had a dream. Now, if you've ever had those dreams which feel so real, you can remember every detail, and still to this day I can remember every detail. It was terrifying. So it was my house and I was inside the house, and there were big gates. Mine was the only house on the street in this dream, and it was still in the same place, but all the other houses had disappeared. But my house had elongated where these other houses were. So it was like a big manor house, a big mansion type thing. And there were these huge gates in front of the house, and there was a woman stood outside. Now, it wasn't the same woman because this woman was blonde, but again, she had very grey eyes and in a white coat thing, and she was like screaming and shaking the bars and screaming, "I want my baby back, give me my baby back, I want my baby," like proper screaming and shaking things down. And it was horrible. It was, I just felt so terrified. It was like I was watching it. I didn't like, because I felt like with the other one I felt like the fear and the terror of going to kill myself. That's how it felt. But this one, it was like I was watching this happening as me, so I was really scared. And obviously I must have started screaming in my sleep, because my mum comes in and she says, "Are you okay?" You know, and I explained to her what happened, and she was like, "Oh wow, you know, that's terrifying, obviously." And I explained to her about the gates, these big black iron gates and everything like that. So we did a little bit of research on the house, and basically where we lived used to be a mental town. In fact, it still had a lot of mental facilities to that day. But it used to be, you know, they used to have huge facilities for mentally ill people. That explains the white gowns and everything. I honestly didn't know any of this before all of this stuff started happening to me, which is just absolutely terrifying. I'm just like, no, don't want to deal with it. Okay, so the last one I have is actually at a pub from where my parents are. I was sat in there and we were having dinner with my family, and I started to feel like a sensation on my neck, and it wasn't like I was being choked. It wasn't like it wasn't like pain on my neck, like it was burning or anything. It was just like I was starting to struggle to breathe, and it went on and on and on and on, to the point where I was like, I'm kind of struggling to breathe here. I'm just gonna pop to the loo. And Mum's like, I'll come with you, don't want you to die in the toilets. And we got in there, and I had a huge ring around my neck, and I thought, well, maybe it's from where I've been touching myself, but it went all the way round in a perfect circle, and I was absolutely terrified. So we came back in, we knew the owners of the place, and we started chatting to them. So I said, "Oh, are you all right?" And I explained what had happened and sort of chatted to them about it. Apparently that town centre used to be where they hung people. They hung people there in that town centre, and the city hall, which is just literally across the road, is where they used to hold them before this happened. So that was also another terrifying experience. It wasn't severe enough that, you know, we had to get an ambulance or anything like that, but it was starting to get quite bad. After I went to the toilet and came back again, it stopped. but the mark was there for quite a while, so that was pretty terrifying. Aside from that, you know, I haven't had any traumatic paranormal events happen to me. It's been quite quiet, which I am very, very thankful for, I must say. But I wanted to share these with you guys because obviously Halloween. So thank you so much for listening to me talk about my paranormal stories. I really hope you enjoyed hearing them as much as I kind of did retelling them. It's not something I want to do quite often. I do feel like the law of attraction. I used to talk about this stuff all the time, and more things started happening to me, and it got worse and worse and worse until I started choking and things like that. So I decided to stop going down that route, and things haven't really happened to me since. I kind of want to keep it that way. But as it's Halloween, I thought I'd share these with you guys. I really hope you enjoyed them. Don't forget to follow me on social media. I'm on Twitter, Instagram and Snapchat, or Beenafish. Thank you so much for being here with me today. Hit the subscribe button, hit the like button, and I will see you guys tomorrow.